marijuana is not that bad and that it's okay for them to use it. And it's not. You know, it is illegal, and it is certainly illegal for people who are under the age of 18. But understanding that society is changing its view on marijuana and not wanting to, have people who are, who have a significant records for, simple possession of marijuana. We don't prioritize prosecuting those type of possession cases. The issue for me is that most of my homicides are related to drug transactions gone bad, and pretty much 100% of those drug-related transactions involve marijuana. So while I, again, have very strong feelings about not saddling people with possession convictions for possession of marijuana, because I just think that, society has changed in terms of its views, and while it's not necessarily legal to use it recreationally, there's a certain level of acceptance. And I think it would be, and so juries are not interested in convicting people of possession. Judges aren't interested. A lot of times, officers don't even show up to those type of cases. So it does not help us to focus on those types of cases when we can be focusing on more serious offenses. But marijuana, again, is the source of a significant number of our homicides in the county. And so we're sort of grappling with how we address the issues around the black market sale of marijuana and the violence around that.
Yeah, it's so pervasive. And now with as you said, society's kind of shifting, the larger society is kind of shifting, which makes it more difficult to get your hands around the issue. And you've got people that, well, they've got medical marijuana, you got dispensaries opening up not too far away, and you're right, as you tip across the line, and folks come back with a little more than they left with, you've got a bigger issue to deal with. Yeah, that makes it tough. Wow.
Well, Madam State's Attorney, I have another question I wanted to ask you, because of this has been happening across the country again, and I think we've all seen some of the high-profile incidents involving police misconduct that have sort of strained police community relationships, and our listeners know my past and know my feelings about good police service and so forth, and I just wanted to just kind of talk to you about that a little bit, because there have been several high-profile incidents across the nation of alleged police misconduct, that strain community police relationships. And, of course, based on media reporting, citizens in certain communities feel that there is an effort that justice is not being applied equally. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts, particularly you saw it right down the road in Baltimore, not necessarily the non-application of prosecution, but just that whole climate within that unit of corruption and misconduct. And so I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that particular aspect of your office.
Sure. Well, my office has taken a zero tolerance policy on police misconduct. I created a separate public integrity unit that not only will, investigate and prosecute police officers and other law enforcement officials who have acted outside the scope of their authority and have been abusive to our residents. But we are also taking a very hard line on public corruption generally. So elected officials, appointed officials, government officials, who are, acting in a manner that is corrupt. We are holding them responsible as well. That unit, maybe about 2 months ago, recently indicted a police officer who we believe used excessive force against a homeless man.
Okay.
And so the message there is that we don't care in our office, who the victim is, whether that victim even has a fixed address.
Sure.
We care about every member of our community, and we
Sure.
will hold our officers to a very high standard. I think what was wonderful about announcing that indictment is that I had the police chief right beside me.
Sure.
He understands that, this community deserves to be policed in a way that is constitutional.
Absolutely.
And that to the extent that, his officers have created a problem, that his department has a responsibility to also call it out. And so I think doing things like that helps the community to understand that it's not just the prosecutor, but that the police are also going to check themselves. And so I think that sends the right message to the community.
Sure.
And there may be cases where we don't agree on how our office handles it. There may be indictments that the police department may not agree with, but that won't prevent me from doing my job. But we work very hard to, all of us, to earn the public trust and to demonstrate that they can trust us and believe in us. We don't want the same incident that happened in Baltimore City and
Sure.
other communities throughout this country to happen in Prince George's County. But what we know is that it could happen.
Sure.
And so we all have to do our part to make sure that we are behaving in a manner that is, that we are being courageous, and that we are calling out and holding people responsible, and that we're not hiding the ball or hiding any type of police misconduct, because
Sure.
I think that's when the community starts to not trust you, when they believe that you're trying to hide the ball, trying to protect people. We're not here to protect people or any particular person. We're here to protect our community.
Absolutely. Well said. And I guess within that same vein of investigations and prosecutions, several of the major cities across the country have experienced issues with this whole Stop Snitching campaign. And it's impacted successful prosecutions because people don't want to testify and provide witness information and so forth. Has that been a problem that you found since you have taken over as the chief prosecutor in Prince George's?
Absolutely. And that's particularly compounded with some of the issues around immigration. So I can tell you that we, here in Prince George's County, we have a pretty significant number of MS-13 related homicides,
Sure.
and MS-13 related, attempts and robberies and other activities. And it is sometimes very difficult to get witnesses to come forward because they may not be here documented, and or they are very concerned about having retaliation, against them or their family because of the gang activity that is occurring in their communities. And so it is a big issue for us. And so we do our best to partner with the U.S. Attorney's Office and
Sure.
the FBI and some of our federal law enforcement agencies to look at opportunities for witness relocation and protection for individuals who, we need to come forward. But oftentimes they just don't, and that's the reality. There's a cultural challenge there. There's a language barrier oftentimes. And again, there's sheer fear that people have, whether it's their fear of being deported or fear of having some type of retaliation taken against them or their family.
Yeah, that's unfortunately something that's been happening for years, and I know that's it's going to be here for many years down the road. But it's just good to hear that there are some proactive things that are happening to try to abate some of that challenging. I know not only to your prosecutors, but also to the detectives, because one of the unique things that you have in Prince George's County that a lot of people don't realize across the country, as we talk about different jurisdictions, is that there are approximately 21 different police departments there. So you're getting cases from a variety of sources and trying to coordinate that investigative arm and making sure you have successful prosecutions. It's quite a challenge for you, I'm sure.
It's challenging, but it's also an opportunity. And because we have so many different agencies, we do try to partner with them. And because I've been able to develop a really great working relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office, we're able to communicate with them and ask for assistance when needed. And so, again, our office, I have some of the best prosecutors anywhere in the state, and I'm very proud of that, probably anywhere in the country. I've got great prosecutors, but we have limited resources. And so when it comes to certain things that might be pretty costly, we have to rely on our partners to assist. The federal government has a lot more resources, especially for victim assistance and also assistance for witnesses. And so being able to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and all of our federal folks have been really helpful. And we're hoping to just grow that relationship as we have more complex murders that happen here.
Sure.
Generally related to gang activity, but we also have other like local kind of crews and and you know this because
Sure.
you were here. These
Sure.
neighborhood, they're not quite gangs, but they fancy themselves to be gangs, but they can be quite treacherous.
Sure.
In communities, and so those are the type of things that we're trying to address. And we've been able to get a large number of successful prosecutions. Our police department is great. They close, I think, about 80-something% of the homicides, and then they give it to us to prosecute. And so far, since I've taken over in January, we have not lost a homicide
Nice.
trial. We've had, I think, maybe one hung jury. But we plan to retry that case.
Awesome.
But look, we all have our roles to play. We play our role very well, just like the police department plays their role very well. But those who are creating crime in our community, they're not going to stop just because we do our jobs very well.
That's correct.
Because some of them, especially when you look at MS-13, the ringleaders, the sort of the heads of those, groups, they don't even live here. They're not even here in the U.S. So they're calling in orders from El Salvador, and so it is difficult and very challenging to address those issues. But we are addressing them, and we do our best to get the intel needed to hold people accountable.
Sure. And I just got a text question for you, Madam State's Attorney. I know you have to run, but I just wanted to put this out there. And the person wanted to know is, what is your top priority as the top prosecutor in Prince George's County?
My top priority is to keep my community safe. I think that's everyone. I mean, any prosecutor that has to be their priority. And I know that that's probably kind of a open-ended kind of response.
Absolutely.
But
that's okay.
But the reality is that has to be the response, because safety is the ultimate objective of our office is to provide for public safety. And I say that because sometimes it does involve prosecution, and we do that, and we do it very well. But in other instances, it is providing second chances for people, because if we give a person a second chance and they're able to get an education, they're able to get a job, then they're less likely to reoffend. And therefore, our community is safer because we've changed the